Let's get straight to the point. This isn't about manipulation. It's about safeguarding your emotional well-being, establishing personal boundaries, and preserving your inner calm. Some things are sacred and shouldn't be revealed casually. Not every man earns complete access to who you are. Today, I'll guide you through 5 specific aspects every woman should meticulously guard, not out of fear, but from a place of wisdom. We'll discuss what you should never reveal too soon, if ever. Let's begin with insecurities. Those quiet whispers we carry, which often amplify in the wrong hands. You know, the thoughts that surface late at night as you replay conversations, second guess your actions, or wonder if you're too much or not enough. These moments of internal doubt are real. They don't make you weak. They make you human. However, these deeply personal fears, rooted in your history, your wounds, and your life experiences, are not for public consumption. And they are absolutely not for early sharing with a man you've just started seeing, regardless of how charming, attentive, or seemingly understanding he appears. Here's a crucial point to remember. Our second access to your inner world is a privilege, not a right. We often confuse emotional vulnerability with emotional intimacy. While vulnerability has its place, it requires a secure foundation. A man who hasn't demonstrated emotional maturity, consistency, accountability, or genuine care should not be entrusted with your most sensitive parts. When you prematurely give someone the blueprint to your insecurities, you also equip them with the tools to manipulate your fears, whether intentionally or not. You don't need to explain your anxiety about abandonment to justify seeking reassurance. You don't have to disclose that your father left when you were a child to make someone understand why you value loyalty. That information is sacred, and sacred things are protected. We live in a world that frequently pressures women to be instantly emotionally available, to open up quickly, to overshare in the name of being real. But being real doesn't mean being unfiltered with people who haven't earned your truth. It means being discerning. It means recognizing the value of what you carry and carefully choosing who gets to see what's inside. It's easy to believe that sharing your deepest insecurities will draw someone closer, that revealing your most fragile parts will make them love you more for your authenticity. But genuine affection doesn't stem from overexposure. It stems from connection. And connection necessitates mutual safety. If you're the sole one bringing emotional depth to the table, that's not a connection, it's an imbalance. So, when a man asks, "What are you afraid of?" Pause. Ask yourself, has he created an emotionally safe space, or is he merely curious? There's a distinction between interest and genuine care. One seeks to know you, the other seeks to hold you. Don't conflate the two. And never underestimate the subtlety of emotional harm. Some men don't lash out overtly. Some will use your insecurities as quiet leverage, throwing them back at you during disagreements or withholding affection to punish your vulnerability. When that occurs, it erodes your self-worth, not because your feelings were wrong, but because you gave too much to someone who offered too little. Therefore, you must protect yourself. This doesn't mean being cold or playing games. It simply means pacing your openness. Next, allow time to be your filter. Let his actions over time reveal whether he is worthy of your truth. A secure man won't demand to know everything at once. He'll wait, he'll listen, and he'll honor what you choose to share when you are ready. This is about self-respect. It's about maintaining your equilibrium, because you should never feel as though your most fragile truths are at risk in someone else's hands. You shouldn't have to worry if something you said in a vulnerable moment will be used against you in an argument or manipulated to silence, shame, or diminish you. Your insecurities aren't baggage. They're part of your narrative. But that narrative deserves a reader who handles every page with care. Until you know he will, it's not only acceptable to withhold some chapters, it's essential. Guard your soul as if it's priceless, because it is. Now let's discuss emotional history. Not the superficial details, but the genuinely profound, often unspoken experiences that have shaped who you are past relationships, heartbreaks, betrayals, the wounds that still sting even when you pretend they don't. These chapters of your life carry significant weight. While you might think sharing them quickly demonstrates honesty or depth, I urge you to reconsider before handing someone your entire emotional resume. Just like anything valuable, timing and trust are paramount. Not every man needs to know every detail of your past. Not every man deserves to hear the stories behind your silence, your resilience, or your tenderness. When you share too much of that emotional history too early, you are effectively giving someone the script to your triggers, your patterns, your fears, and you don't yet know how they might use that information. Sometimes we rush to overshare in the hope of being fully seen. Perhaps you've been told that if you're not open, you're concealing something, that if you're guarded, you're not being real. But being real doesn't mean emptying your emotional archive into someone's lap simply because they asked a few kind questions. Being real means knowing what to share, when to share it, and who has demonstrated the maturity to receive it. There's a distinction between connection and confession. Connection is mutual. It builds slowly, layer by layer, with both individuals revealing, respecting, and responding. Confession is often one-sided. It stems from a need for validation, to be chosen, for someone to acknowledge your pain so they remain. But here's the truth. If someone requires your emotional history to decide if you're worth loving, they are not ready to love you authentically. Consider this: you've endured difficult experiences, relationships that left their mark, situations that taught you what you'll never tolerate again. That's not baggage, that's wisdom. And wisdom dictates that you don't owe everyone access to everything just because they're curious. You don't have to explain why you flinch when someone raises their voice. You don't have to walk a man through every reason you stayed too long in your last relationship or every red flag you overlooked because you didn't want to be alone. That is, have sacred space, and sacred space must be earned. Sometimes, what appears to be interest is actually surveillance. Some men will inquire about your past, not to understand you, but to gauge how much you will tolerate. They are not listening with compassion, they are listening with strategy. If you give them the blueprint to what has wounded you, they will know precisely how to bend you without breaking the bond. It happens subtly. By the time you realize it, you're already diminishing yourself to avoid repeating history. But you don't have to play that game. You can share what's relevant when it's relevant. You can be emotionally honest without being emotionally exposed. You can say, there are parts of my story I'm not ready to share yet, and anyone truly worth your time will respect that boundary. In fact, the right man will admire it because he'll recognize it as a sign of your self-respect. And when you do feel ready When time and trust have forged a solid foundation, your story won't be a burden, it will be a bridge. But allow that to unfold organically. Don't feel pressured to turn your pain into a performance simply to feel worthy of connection. You are permitted to keep pieces of your past close until you know someone is safe. Your healing doesn't need to be performed, it needs to be protected. And anyone who rushes your process isn't prioritizing your heart, they're prioritizing their access. So hold your history as if it truly matters, because it does. Money has a way of revealing people's true character. It can create opportunities, expose entitlement, and just as easily betray true intentions. For women particularly, your financial reality. What you earn, what you owe. How you spend, save, or invest is not something you need to disclose early in a relationship. In fact, it's one of the things you should protect most diligently. Now, I'm not advocating for dishonesty or deception. What I'm saying is this: you don't owe anyone a complete financial breakdown simply because you're dating. Sharing your income, credit score, debt, investments, or your family's financial situation, none of that belongs in the initial chapters of getting to know someone. That level of access isn't just personal, it's powerful. And that power should only be entrusted to someone who has proven they will not abuse it. Too often, especially when a relationship begins to feel serious, there's a pressure to quickly merge everything: emotions, routines, finances. But the truth is, your financial reality is more than just numbers. It embodies your independence, your choices, the life you've meticulously built. No matter how generous you feel or how much you trust someone, you must pause and ask, has this individual shown they genuinely respect what I've worked so hard for? Not merely admired it, not just benefited from it, but truly respected it. Because it's effortless for someone to declare their admiration for your success. It's easy to compliment your drive, your ambition, your lifestyle. But admiration can swiftly transform into resentment when power dynamics shift and you won't always anticipate it. Sometimes it manifests in subtle remarks like, "You don't need to work so hard," or "Why do you care so much about saving?" Or perhaps it's sarcastic comments about your constant financial solvency, or an unspoken expectation that you'll cover expenses without question. Before you realize it, your financial stability becomes someone else's reliance, or worse, their leverage. You are not a safety net. You are not an ATM for someone's convenience. And you are not obliged to explain your earnings, your savings, or your future financial plans until a relationship has matured beyond mere comfort or initial chemistry. And let's address DebtF, because that's an integral part of this discussion too. Some individuals might attempt to exploit your vulnerability concerning debt, student loans, credit cards, family obligations, as a means to question your judgment or undermine your confidence. However, your past financial decisions do not define your worth. They are private matters for you to manage, not for someone else to critique. The right man will never make your financial reality feel like something you have to defend. He won't demand financial access before trust has been firmly established. And if he does, that's your clear signal to step back and re-evaluate. Because when someone pushes too quickly for financial intimacy, it's not about affection, it's about control, convenience, or entitlement. None of these are suitable foundations for a healthy relationship. You can build a life with someone without handing over every detail of your financial landscape in the early stages. You can simply state, I'm focusing on my financial goals, and leave it at that. You can decline to co-sign, to lend, to merge bills, or to split purchases that don't align with your best interests. And you shouldn't feel guilty for establishing these boundaries. Your financial journey is uniquely yours. It reflects your hard work, your sacrifices, and the future you are striving to create. And just like any valuable aspect of yourself, it merits protection. Anyone who genuinely desires to walk alongside you won't need complete financial access to prove their worth. They will demonstrate who they are by how they respect your boundaries, not by how much they can gain from your openness. You don't have to disclose your monetary situation to validate your heart's intentions. One of the most sacred possessions a woman holds is her vision for her life, her goals, her timeline, her dreams. This includes where she desires to live, the career path she's forging, whether she wants marriage, children, travel, a specific lifestyle, or profound inner peace above all else. These plans might not be formally documented, but they are deeply felt. All too often, women are conditioned to mold these aspirations around whoever enters their life, especially if that man exhibits even a glimmer of potential or interest. But here is my unequivocal message. Your life plan is not a negotiation, particularly not in the nascent stages of a relationship. Not simply because someone finds you appealing, and certainly not because you're concerned about missing an opportunity. Your personal plan is the roadmap to your future. Unless someone demonstrates the consistency, maturity, and a shared vision to genuinely build with you, not just to benefit from you, there is no need to hand them the blueprint. It's easy to feel compelled to share everything upfront: your 5-year plan, your ideal number of children, how soon you wish to settle down, or your retirement aspirations. If you are someone who possesses such clarity, that focus is powerful. However, it's also a point of vulnerability, because the wrong person can seize that information and shapeshift into the person you imagine them to be, just long enough to keep you emotionally invested, while never truly moving in that direction themselves. Suddenly, you find yourself adjusting your timeline, softening your standards, or shrinking your goals merely to sustain the relationship. This isn't because you changed, but because he was never truly aligned with you in the first place, and you were too deeply entrenched by the time you realized it. So, here's a shift in perspective. You don't need to declare all your plans immediately. Instead, you need to observe. Pay close attention to how he discusses the future. Does he consistently speak in terms of I, or does he truly listen when you articulate your goals? Or does he habitually redirect the conversation back to himself? Is he genuinely supportive when you discuss your ambitions, or does he subtly downplay them? Most importantly, does his lifestyle reflect someone who is actively pursuing something, or is he merely drifting? Because if a man isn't constructing a future for himself, he has no legitimate reason to disrupt yours. You can absolutely engage in meaningful conversations about values, life direction, and lifestyle compatibility. But as compatibility is not synonymous with convenience. Don't allow someone to merely mirror your dreams, simply to secure a place at your emotional table. Let time and his actions unequivocally demonstrate whether your lives naturally converge without you having to contort yourself into alignment. If you desire marriage and he expresses uncertainty, believe him. If you want children and he consistently avoids the conversation, pay close attention. If you are committed to building a business, traveling the world, or relocating to a new city, and he is solely interested in what is comfortable, right now, that is crucial data. You shouldn't have to fight for alignment. True alignment reveals itself through consistent behavior, not through persuasive arguments. It is perfectly acceptable to keep some aspects of your vision private in the beginning, not out of secrecy, but out of self-protection. Your dreams are precious, and sharing them prematurely with the wrong person can cloud your judgment. You'll begin imagining what could be instead of confronting what is. You'll hear him say, "That sounds amazing," and mistakenly interpret that as commitment. But words without accompanying action are merely empty noise. You deserve a partner who doesn't just nod along, but actively shows up, who genuinely supports your vision and contributes one of his own. If that fundamental alignment isn't present, you are absolutely permitted to walk away with peace. It doesn't mean your plan was too grand or too specific. It means you were wise enough not to settle for anything less. Your dreams are not open for compromise. They are open for partnership. And until someone proves they are building in the same direction, you owe no one the complete map. One of the most insidious ways women lose their authentic selves in relationships is by sex over, explaining their emotional needs too soon, almost like providing someone with a cheat sheet. Here's precisely how I prefer to be loved. Here's how I need support. Here's what to say when I'm anxious. Here's what I expect when I'm upset. On the surface, this might appear to be healthy communication, a demonstration of clarity. However, here lies the fundamental problem. It often devolves into emotional labor, not genuine emotional connection. When you prematurely and completely hand over your emotional expectations, you are essentially doing his work for him. You are providing him with the roadmap to your heart before he has even demonstrated an ability to navigate his own. And what ultimately transpires is that you're not truly observing him, you're observing his capacity to follow instructions. But following instructions is not synonymous with understanding. It's not synonymous with genuine effort. It's not synonymous with true care. You see, a vital component of emotional intimacy is discovery. It involves someone taking the time to learn about you, not because you provided them with a list, but because they are genuinely present and attentive. They observe your reactions. They ask thoughtful follow-up questions. They remember small, significant details. They consistently show up in ways that convey, "I may not know everything about you, but I am paying attention." That is the essence of genuine emotional investment. But when you tell a man too early how to love you, how to apologize to you, how to be there for you, without him ever having to earn that information, what you're truly doing is hoping that if you articulate yourself clearly enough, you will finally be loved correctly. That if you lay everything out perfectly, there will be no room for disappointment. But people are not recipes. You cannot give someone all the precise ingredients and expect them to bake something beautiful if they never intended to cook in the first place. Allow him to reveal his emotional capacity through his behavior. Observe not just how he treats you when things are easy, but how he responds when you are quiet, when you are overwhelmed, when you are not at your best. Does he lean in, or does he become frustrated? Does he genuinely inquire, or does he merely assume? You need that critical information before you offer a manual on how to love you, because If you bypass that crucial step, you won't truly know if he is genuinely attuned to you or simply performing. You are not responsible for teaching a grown man how to be emotionally present. If you are guiding him, supporting his growth, and encouraging him, yes, that is a healthy partnership. But if you are constantly having to spell out your emotional needs just to be heard, that borders on parenting. And the more you assume that role, the more he'll allow you to, until you find yourself becoming the caretaker of the relationship while he simply coasts. So, it is absolutely fine to, et cetera, withhold certain expectations at the outset. Not because you're being secretive or manipulative, but because you're allowing the relationship to reveal its natural rhythm. You're observing to see if there's genuine space for your feelings. Not just room for them, but true respect. You're choosing to be known, not merely managed. And here's the unvarnished truth: your emotional needs are not excessive. They are not unrealistic. They are not a burden. But they do necessitate someone who wants to meet them. Someone who isn't just present for the good times, but who is emotionally fluent enough to recognize and respond to your internal world without needing you to draw a map every single time. You deserve to experience a love that feels safe, steady, and profoundly seen. However, that begins with your understanding that your emotional world is not something to perform, defend, or meticulously package for someone else's comfort. It is something to be honored by the right person at the appropriate time through consistent, respectful actions. Don't hand someone the instructions to your heart. Instead, observe first to discern if they are even willing to build something authentic with it. If there's one thing you should never feel guilty about protecting, it is your peace. That calm, grounded sanctuary within you, that clarity you painstakingly cultivated after everything you've endured, it is asas, not up for negotiation. It is not something you owe anyone access to, and it is most certainly not something you should ever sacrifice in the name of love, attention, or maintaining peace with someone who persistently disrupts it. Here is the reality: genuine peace is not loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't argue to be understood. Peace is quiet, strong, and still. And when a relationship begins to cost you that precious stillness, when you find yourself perpetually second guessing, over explaining, adjusting, or tolerating behaviors you never would have before, that is not love. That is a clear warning sign. You might not even perceive it initially. It starts subtly. You become a little quieter during conversations because you wish to avoid triggering his mood. You diminish yourself in social settings because he appears uncomfortable when you shine too brightly. You laugh off things that genuinely bother you because bringing them up feels like an overwhelming chore. And before you know it, you've slowly drifted out of alignment with your true self. Not because you desired to, but because keeping him happy began to feel safer than being honest. That's not peace. That's a performance. That's survival. And no relationship built on that kind of constant management will ever provide you with what you truly need. Peace is not merely the absence of chaos. It is the palpable presence of emotional safety. It is the profound knowing that who you are does not need to be toned down or reshaped to be accepted. It is waking up and going to sleep without that persistent knot in your stomach or that nagging voice in your head asking, "Did I say the wrong thing again?" It is being able to breathe fully in someone's presence, rather than holding your breath, hoping they don't suddenly change. And that peace, that precious peace, is entirely yours. You earned it through heartbreak, through establishing clear boundaries, through undertaking the rigorous inner work it takes to not just appear strong, but to be truly strong. So why would you relinquish that for someone who hasn't even demonstrated they can handle you with care? You don't need to elaborate on why you no longer engage in arguments the same way you once did, why you don't react as quickly, why you choose to leave when the energy shifts or become quiet, when the atmosphere feels off. That is your ASPC speaking for you. That is wisdom. You have learned the significant cost of lingering too long in spaces that never allowed you room to simply exist and rest. And now you navigate the world differently. That is growth. But growth also demands protection, because peace is not a given, it is a conscious choice. And the moment you allow someone to disturb it without consequence, you are implicitly telling yourself that your comfort matters less than their presence, that your calm is worth sacrificing merely to avoid being alone. And that, unequivocally, is a lie too many women have been conditioned to believe. That discomfort is the inevitable price of companionship. It is not. You are entirely permitted to walk away from anything that feels heavy more often than it feels healthy. You are allowed to choose silence over repeatedly explaining yourself. You are allowed to keep your energy clean, your personal space protected, and your emotions centered, even if that means being misunderstood by someone who never genuinely cared to understand you in the first place. You don't have to be the one who constantly smooths things over, who maintains peace by sacrificing your own, who holds everything together while silently falling apart inside. That is not your designated role. That is not your burden. And most importantly, that is not love. True peace emerges when you understand that you could share your life with someone, but you don't need to in order to feel whole. When you cease chasing external validation and begin honoring your own internal emotional environment. When your inner world transforms into a sanctuary of truth rather than tension. And when you encounter someone who deeply respects that, who brings peace instead of requiring you to meticulously create it amidst their chaos, you will know. You will know because your nervous system won't have to instinctively fight. Your voice won't have to defensively rise. Your boundaries won't feel like rigid walls. Instead, they will feel like open invitations to deeper, more profound respect. So, above all else, protect your peace. Because when you possess that, you genuinely possess everything. Therefore, here's what it all ultimately boils down to. This is not about playing manipulative games. It's not about being intentionally closed off or difficult to reach. It's about profoundly understanding that not everything about you is meant for immediate access, because you are not an open for all public space. You are intricately layered, immensely valuable, and profoundly human. And that inherently means some things must be earned. Your insecurities, your emotional history, your financial truth, your vision for the future, your expectations, and most critically, your SPC are not casual topics. They are integral parts of your identity. And anyone who genuinely desires complete access to you needs to demonstrably show they can handle you with consistent care, profound understanding, and unwavering clarity over time. Do not be afraid to hold something back, not out of fear, but out of unwavering self-respect, because the right man won't need to be convinced, coaxed, or meticulously instructed. He will simply rise to genuinely meet you. And when he does, you will know with absolute certainty that you can share it all without ever losing yourself in the process.